Well, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back, finally, coming back with a new installment of an adventure series, and I'm very excited to cover this figure this time. For this segment of the adventure series, we're going to be talking about T.E. Lawrence, or Lawrence of Arabia. And for the first episode, I'm going to review the classic David Lean film starring Peter O'Toole and Alec Guinness, Lawrence of Arabia. Now this is a very common known movie, and it's been highly acclaimed. It won 7 Academy Awards upon release. Forget the exact year, but it won 7 Academy Awards when it was released. And it's a very highly acclaimed film, and if you go online and you look up stuff, especially on YouTube and that, there a lot of history buffs and historians love this movie, but they also kind of rip it apart in a certain way too, because there's a lot of historically inaccurate things about the character, which I'll get into that further, because I got a lot more other stuff coming in this segment. I got documentaries I'm going to review, and articles I'm going to read, all kinds of stuff like that. So we'll get into that and kind of compare the real life T.E. Lawrence to the movie version after. But some of the most common things that you hear brought up is, Peter O'Toole is 6'2" or 6'1" or something like that, and the real T.E. Lawrence was actually very short, just above height of being midget level, literally. Like he was 5'1" or 5'2" or something like that. Like he was a very, very short man. So that's a big inaccuracy, as well as the infamous scene in which T.E. Lawrence confesses about having enjoyed shooting somebody, which we'll get into all of that later, but those are two scenes that are, or two aspects of the story that are brought up rapidly in these historical review kinds of things that are out there. But, about the movie itself, I will say, I do agree. I love this movie. It's definitely one of my favorites. I love the filming of this movie. I love the I love the 70 millimeter. I love it. It's just the colors and just everything about the shots in this movie is just absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. And this was all filmed on real locations, and as you know, I am a buff for real location filming, and the locations are absolutely stunning, and the shots are just completely beautiful, and even the odd time they use a set, very well done, very well crafted. Pretty much, if you know, as far as being immersed into a film, this film does its job big time. Two scenes I want to talk about particularly, as they're my favorite. When they finally reach the coast, around the last end, the tail end of the second act of the film, is just a beautiful sequence. The shots in there are just so nice. The complete desert, complete barren desert, and then leading up to this fortress that's made of somewhat, almost medieval looking bridge, but with a very Eastern Arabian look to it, with that bleached white from the sun, stone, and then this beautiful light blue ocean coming up with some islands around, and then just going into nothing. Beautiful sequence. I love everything about those shots. Those are my favorite shots in the whole movie, I'd say. And another scene, there's a scene where two people are talking inside of a building, and power's on, lights are on and everything, but the backdrop, there's a deck out from the living room that they're sitting in, and then there's just the backdrop of some scenery. Such a nice shot, such a hauntingly beautiful shot, really. and then the power goes out and the house goes dark, but it's like it just dusk, right? So there's still a bit of light, but it's getting dark. So the lighting outside gets darker, but also the sky brightens up more, and just everything. It's just a super nice shot, and it's probably one of my favorite shots in the whole movie, actually. I will say this movie is incredibly long. Like, one of its biggest flaws, besides anything else, is it's too long. It's too long. Like, I don't care how much you're into the history of this, how much you're invested in the movie, how much you like the shots, how much you like the storytelling, the actors in it, anything like that. It's too damn long. It's way, 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 way too long. And no matter what, you just can't help but to be, like, looking around the room, you know, pacing around a bit. Like, just, it really, really gets long, long, long and boring at times. But I think ultimately, I really don't think the movie needed to be that long to tell the story that it told, and convey the message that it did. But, you know, the making of the film itself was a journey in itself, and the technical achievements, especially for the time, was a journey in itself. So I think it kind of got it kind of overbasked in that, to the point where it was too long, but where you can kind of understand why it's too long from the people behind the creation of this movie's point of view. But yeah, that's the biggest flaw. Like, everything else would be like any other flaw I can think of, which I'm kind of trying to think of, but there's not a whole lot off the top of my head. But if anything, the biggest flaw, like, anything else would have been passable, but the biggest flaw is just how long this movie is. It's just way too long. I can't stress that enough. Like, don't watch this unless you've got some time to really sit there and delve into it. And, you know, whatever whatever you do, have your, you know, writing stuff with you to write down stuff and take notes, or write your own stuff, whatever you're doing. Maybe even have a book, like, maybe not a hard reading book, but just a light reading book with you or something. If you knit or whatever, have your knitting stuff, but, like, have something else to kind of, I mean, unless you have a really, I mean, I got a pretty good attention span. Like, I'm not some complete, like, unless there's an explosion right away, I'm lost interest. Like, that's not me at all. Like, I love these classic, like, longer, old school kind of movies, and I love these ones that you really have to watch and invest time into to see things. So I don't want to convey the wrong message there, but for this one particularly, I don't care what kind of attention span you have, like, unless you have an abnormally strong attention span, then you're gonna lose some moments in this, because you're gonna want to do something else besides. Like, it's just inevitable, I think, really, at the end of the day. At least in my perspective, in my opinion, anyway. But yeah, that's definitely the film's biggest flaw. I love the performances. Peter O'Toole did a great job. Alec Guinness, classic actor. Another one of the classic movies that he was in. Great performance. Yeah, I was going to, at first, because I love the movie, I love the story, and I really enjoy learning about the real T.E. Lawrence. So at first I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to give this movie an A+ for sure. And you know what, I am going to give the movie an A+. But, for a long while during this movie, I actually took the grading down, and I was going to give it an A, because I just thought it was way too long to be sitting through. But at the end of the day, I think the images are, like, I've seen the movie before, but not in a long time, and especially rewatching it now, the images, I mean, they always have been, but especially now, those images are just burned into my brain in a good way. I mean, people use that for disturbing movies all the time, which there are movies that have that in my brain too, but this is one of those movies that once you see the images in this, they're always going to be burned into your brain in a positive way. They're always going to be, if you're ever having bad thoughts and you want to think, or you see something that grosses you out on TV or whatever, and you want to think of a happy place or a good, positive image in your brain, go to the images of Lawrence of Arabia. It will tone your nerves down, guaranteed. So at the end of the day, I'm going to respect the movie to such a degree that I will still give the movie an A+. And as for the cheese grating, I will say, I'm going to try, because I'm going to incorporate that into every review I do now, but, so I'm going to try and get a cheese for every, review that I do, but I will say there is zero cheese in this movie. There is no cheese to be found. No cheese to be found whatsoever, not a scrape of it. Everything is really realistic, authentic, and good. So that's my review for Lawrence of Arabia, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. That's an adventure series for T.E. Lawrence, episode 1.